Hello, this is Jonathan Goodman, and something a little bit different today. I'm going to be away for a week, and we were wondering what to do on the podcast while I was gone because I'm not going to be able to record, and decided to share with you one of my favorite essays that I've written of all time, and also what I think is one of my most important pieces I've ever written. So this is called How to Use Money to Buy a Better Life. It starts with a quote by Daniel Gilbert, the author of Stumbling on Happiness. He said, "With the poor, a little money can buy a lot of happiness. If you're rich, a lot of money can buy you a little more happiness." Money is a taboo subject, but not taboo like religion and politics, where you know the other person is practically bursting with opinions but is afraid to share them. The taboo is against sharing anything real. That's why money conversations generally go one of two ways. The first is more is better. You don't have to spend much time on social media before you see someone trying to sell the dream of being a 6 or even a 7-figure trainer, someone who flaunts his new Maserati or the exotic vacations he can afford. What's missing from these pictures is an honest assessment of the marginal utility of financial wealth, what money is good for and what it's not. Yes, more money is generally better than less, but once you get past a certain threshold, one that includes a satisfying lifestyle and purposeful work, the amount you make has little to no connection to how happy you are. Making more when you're already happy gives you a disproportionately small improvement in happiness. Consider what happens when a relatively affluent person gets a few thousand more as a bonus or raise. He'll probably put the money in a savings account and not give it another thought. Conversely, that same $10,000 can make a huge difference in a poor person's quality of life. She'll pay off a debt or get a long-delayed car repair or medical procedure, or maybe put a deposit on a new apartment in a better school district, all of which could make a long-lasting difference in her life and ultimately her happiness. That's what happens when you get a little bit more money. Making a lot more can be a very different challenge. As the Notorious B.I.G. famously rapped, "More money, more problems." Research tells us he's not wrong. Beyond an income that frees you from debt and allows a sustainable quality of life, more income usually means longer work hours, higher stress, more worries, and more responsibility. Although there is an exception for philanthropists. One study showed that people who make more than $10 million a year are happier simply because they can give away so much without feeling pinched. In the US, the tipping point seems to be about $75,000 a year on average, although it obviously varies by location. Making $75,000 can put you in the upper middle class in rural Mississippi, but good luck getting by on that in New York and San Francisco. But no matter what the magic number is where you live, there's always a marginal utility of wealth, the value of any incremental increase in your income or net worth relative to the risk or cost of achieving it. It's something you have to consider when you contemplate new projects and initiatives. Rather than thinking solely in terms of the return, you have to ask what it will cost you in terms of time, stress, distance from your family, sleep, fitness levels, passions, or anything else that matters to you. Now, the second thing is that money doesn't buy you happiness. This is the second type of conversation people are willing to have about money, like more money is better. It's obviously not right. As the title of a 2011 study in the Journal of Consumer Psychology puts it, if money doesn't make you happy, then you probably aren't spending it right. See, I don't make as much money as I could. My business decisions certainly consider profit and loss because without money it's impossible to make an impact. But money is just one part of the process, and it's rarely the most important one. Years ago, when my business started rolling, I wondered if there could ever be a point where I would make too much. So I put the question to my mentor, expecting a long, complex, possibly mathematical answer. And to my surprise, it took him all of 20 seconds to give me truly life-changing advice. Here's what he told me. What's important is that you have guiding principles, and you maintain a sense of purpose and passion. Work doesn't have to be easy, but it should be energizing. And it must serve a greater purpose. As long as you work within those guidelines, make as much money as you can possibly make. The second a drive for more money wears you down or diverts your path, it's too much. That simple standard, do work that's important and energizing, has guided every business decision I've made since. It's helped me avoid the traps I've seen some of my contemporaries fall into while counterintuitively making more money than them. Money versus wealth. Money viewed objectively is a tool, nothing more, nothing less. What matters is not just how you earn it, but how you spend it. Money, after all, can only work for you if you put it to use. In the 48 Laws of Power, author Robert Greene suggests that you be lavish with your money and keep it circulating. Like any tool, money is meant to be used. You don't hoard hammers and screwdrivers under your mattress. You don't deny yourself the use of your tools when you need them to build something, nor do you hate yourself after using them. What it's not is wealth. Even though the two are often conflated, money can be traded because it represents value. Wealth means having all of your needs satisfied, which can't be traded. The things that make me wealthy, my family, my business, my health, my freedom to roam the world, might not do anything for you. And even if they did, I couldn't possibly transfer them from my account to yours. Once you see it this way, you wonder why so many people have such a screwed up emotional relationship to money. Dysfunctional attitudes towards money, from overspending to false economies and scarcity thinking, don't just hurt business growth. They actually detract from happiness. In the slightly paraphrased words of humorist Robert Quillen, often attributed to others, including Tyler Durden from Fight Club, he said, "We buy things we don't need with money we don't have to impress people we don't like." It looks something like this. We chase money to buy things you don't like or want, to impress people you don't care about, which leads you to chase more money. The rest of this essay will help you make more money. But my aim here is to help you improve your life with the money that you have. The idea for this radical departure from the norm was actually inspired by a reader for Fitness Marketing Monthly and Online Trainer Academy graduate Dawn Joseph, who wrote to us with this. She said, "As inspiring as the stories are from the trainers who have made significant incomes, I'm curious if anyone else can relate to the benefits of the lifestyle change. I just see a lot of anxiety around money, and feeling like you aren't making anywhere near those numbers can feel a little deflating. I know I wouldn't have the time and flexibility to get involved with my kids' lives if I was doing anything else." So what is money anyway? The biggest thing money does is it gives us options: the food we eat, the clothes we wear, the car we drive, the house we live in. Now compare that list to what Tony Robbins considers the 6 most fundamental human needs: certainty, variety, significance, love and/or connection, growth, and contribution. Most expenditures are empty investments on products and services that have, at best, short-term impacts on happiness. You see, acquiring material goods doesn't make you happy. We can't be satisfied by those things because there's always something else to acquire, or a bigger version or variation of a thing you already have. And the truth is, we're never actually satisfied. Here's how Catherine Sanderson, a psychology professor at Amherst, explained it to Time magazine in 2017. She said, "We always think if we had just a little bit more money, we'd be happier. But when we get there, we're not." Researchers who study happiness describe the problem as hedonic adaptation. We fantasize too much about how great it'd be if we hit the jackpot and worry too much about how bad things might happen. It's human nature to overestimate the hedonic impact of future events. In fact, people quickly adapt to changes, great or terrible. That's why 6 months after the fact, paraplegics and lottery winners report the same level of happiness. We have a bias towards an emotional norm, whatever that means for us. And it's the same with purchases. More often than not, it takes less than 2 weeks for the thing we were so excited to buy to become just another thing that we own. It doesn't seem to matter if it's a new car or a pair of socks. If you don't understand how quickly your happiness will return to a baseline, you're doomed to repeat the acquisition process, hoping the next purchase will do what the last one couldn't. It's what researchers refer to as hedonic treadmill. The baseline appears to be hardwired, something our ancient ancestors needed to survive. A change in circumstances might signal a risk or an opportunity, an existential threat, or the chance of a lifetime. Thus, we're hyper-aware of change. We don't notice when things stay the same, even if the status quo is really good. Instead, we scan the horizon, attempting to see around corners and read tea leaves so we aren't caught by surprise when something shifts. What's wrong with vigilance? Well, in theory, nothing. But too often, focusing on the future requires taking the present for granted, even if it means risking a good job or great relationship. It often leads to misguided dreams that result in bad decisions with your money. And for many, these misguided dreams are a prison we enter voluntarily. To get out, you have to remove yourself from the reality advertisers want you to believe in, and instead seek a crystal clear understanding of what makes you happy. You step off the hedonic treadmill when you become more purposeful with your purchases, choosing things with lasting utility rather than fleeting satisfaction. Fortunately, happiness is a hot topic of research, and as you probably guessed, since I've mentioned so much of it here, It's pretty clear what actually leads to higher levels of it. The following 5 principles have good empirical support, and I've actually shared an example of how I apply each principle to my own life as an example. The first one is to choose experiences over material goods. Retail therapy makes it too easy to get on the hedonic treadmill. To step off, invest in experiences, especially those you can share with your family or friends. Even if an experience is largely negative, we seem to retain a positive memory of it and get to revisit it through storytelling, pictures, and videos. My application of this? Instead of buying my wife a birthday present, we go on a birthday adventure. Number 2, buy many small pleasures. Dollar for dollar, you'll get less happiness from a single large purchase compared to a variety of smaller ones. The most common example is to take multiple nights or weekends away during the year as opposed to a single vacation. My application? When home in Toronto, I drive a 2007 car with more than 200,000 kilometers on the odometer. With the money I don't spend on a new car or a single purchase, my wife and I have a weekly date night and get massages every 2 weeks. We haven't taken a big vacation in years, but we do lots of local getaways, and sometimes we'll play tourist in our own city. Other times we'll spend a night in a remote cabin in the woods. Number 3, pay now, consume later. Anticipating a future event is often more enjoyable than the event itself. The best way to amplify anticipation is to pay up front, well in advance. Deferring payment adds an element of anxiety that detracts from the pleasure. And if you opt for a payment plan, there's usually interest or some other financial penalty tacked on. Those additional payments and fees could eventually make you regret the decision. My application? As I write this, I'm living in Sayulita, Mexico, a place officially designated by the Mexican government as a Pueblo Mágico, or magical town. Few stores and restaurants accept credit cards. And it's not the first place I've lived with a cash-based economy, and I've come to prefer paying for things on the spot, even when I'm home in Canada. Number 4, surround yourself with community, family, and friends. Living in a big house with a sprawling yard is an almost universal fantasy. But those who achieve it experience less happiness than those who live in tighter quarters with a vibrant community. I once got the chance to see author Sebastian Junger in a live, unrecorded interview in talking about tribe on homecoming and belonging, his most recent book. In it, he told us he lives in a small walk-up apartment in a Dominican neighborhood in New York City. He could easily afford a mansion thanks to the success of books like A Perfect Storm, but would miss his day-to-day interaction with his neighbors. Daily social contacts are also one of the strongest predictors of how long you'll live, according to journalist and explorer Dan Buettner, author of The Blue Zones, Lessons for Living Longer from the People Who Have Lived the Longest. Do you want to increase both the length and quality of your life? Increase your face-to-face, not Facebook, interactions. My application? When we're in Toronto, Alice and I live in a condo on the water with walking paths right outside of our door. One of us calls a family or friend every week or every evening just to say hello. When we travel, we seek out vibrant towns with strong communities, and then we actually live in the town rather than hotels or resorts. And just to show you how these principles get mixed together, every few weeks we kick out for a night or two in a beautiful hotel or resort. Not only is this cheaper overall, but it's overall more enjoyable in every single respect. Number 5, maximize the things you must do every day. About 30% of our total time on Earth is spent sleeping, and most of us eat at least 3 times a day. The more comfortable and pleasurable you make daily experiences like eating and sleeping, buying a great mattress, for example, the better your life will be. My application? I'll happily spend extra money on good, fresh food, something that's much easier to do when you live in a place like Sayulita, where much of our food is grown and caught locally. But it's also possible in cold weather places like Toronto, although it takes a bit more work. When I lived there full time, I kept Foodland Ontario's free availability guide on my fridge. It told me what would be freshest at any time of the year. How to make this work for you. Not every principle applies to every life, of course. A lot depends on your background, finances, and family situations, as well as what you truly love and care about. Just to pick one example, I don't really care about cars. All I want is something that gets me from point A to point B. If you love cars, of course you should buy a nice one. If you don't, buy a reliable beater so you don't lose sleep over a few dents or scratches, or maybe consider moving to a place where you don't even need a car, and you can always rent one for short trips. That, or live in an urban center and make use of car share programs. How to know what will bring you joy. I want to leave you with a tool called a bug book. It's a concept I heard about from business writer Jim Collins, and one that I'm implementing in my own life. A bug book is a journal where you record the observations you make while studying yourself, the way a scientist would study a bug. When you feel energized or downtrodden, make note of what you're doing, whom you're around, and everything else a careful observer would consider important. Is there a story that sticks in your mind, a quote you remember, a lesson that resonates? Write down anything that could help you understand the most important person in your research. You. You'll start to notice patterns, and if you're like me, those patterns will match up pretty well with the principles I just described. When you think deeply about what makes you happy, you'll likely find it takes a lot less money than you think to live a joyful and satisfying life. And after all, isn't that what really matters?